Well, after a magical 12-game win streak to clinch the playoffs, and after a pretty incredible first round of the playoffs against the Winnipeg Jets, the St. Louis Blues season is over as they lost in pretty heartbreaking fashion to the Jets in double overtime of Game 7. So we're going to talk today about what went wrong in Game 7 and what the Blues have to learn from this game and from the first round as a whole, but more importantly, we'll reflect on the whole 2024-25 season. What were the signature moments from this past season, and can we say the season was a success given the way it ended? And how can the Blues build on this moving forward? We're going to talk about all that and more today on Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. We have episodes twice a week. And so if you want to join us, the best way to do that, we go live here on YouTube, but we're also on audio on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you want to follow on audio. Like I said, we have episodes twice a week. And so the best way to not miss an episode is to join us here live on YouTube. We live stream every episode. So if you want to join when we do that, then be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that button if you haven't already. That's one of the best ways to support us, in addition to liking this video. And then if you're on audio, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. That goes a long way, especially those rates and reviews. We really appreciate those that have done that already. We read every single one, so keep that coming. And then if you just want to follow along with us, be a part of our general sort of community online and engage with us in more ways, then follow us on socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. We post all kinds of great stuff, announce when we're going live. And so those are the best ways to engage with us. We appreciate those that have done it already, but it's off season now. And so we're going to do our best to keep bringing you some solid content throughout the off season, looking at reflecting on this season that we just went through, but also looking, to the future, the draft. We're going to do some draft content coming up. We're going to do some general off season content coming up, free agents, trades, all that kind of stuff. There should be a lot of exciting stuff to break down this summer. And so we're going to be here twice a week, most weeks, to break it down and provide you some episodes. So be sure to follow us and subscribe and all that good stuff to engage with us. But Alec, as I said at the top, the season ended in pretty heartbreaking fashion. I mean, it doesn't get much tougher than that. We'll dive into it here today. But what was your reaction to the Blues losing Game 7 the way they did?
Well, my literal reaction was I slammed the lid of my laptop closed and held my head in my hands for about, I don't know, like 10 seconds or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, took a walk, hands still on my head, some deep breaths. And then I got back to my chair and I thought, you know what? That was a really fun season. There was so many good things that happened. The fact that we were even in that situation in the first place, if you had told us going into the playoffs that we would be in that situation in double overtime with a chance to knock off the best team in the NHL, if you had told me that at any point throughout the regular season, after Broberg got injured, after Thomas got injured, after Parayko got injured the day before the trade deadline, after the Blues stood pat at the trade deadline, before the Four Nations, or even at the start of the season, I would have taken that outcome anyways, even if I knew the loss was coming. So it really sucked. It really sucked as a game to lose that, and it hurts when your season ends in general. But to have it be so sudden, I think, and when there was such hope, too, hurts. But I think taking a step back and looking at it here, this is actually going to be really good for this team going forward. Montgomery has really, at least, we'll get into it, but it seems like he and the boys have really taken the loss and the 5-on-6 play to heart. And that's something that they're going to absolutely address and learn from. And so you can definitely hang your hat on that. And, off season's just beginning. So it's time to get to work for the team. And for us, we'll be here covering it all. But yeah, it hurt at first, but it's going to be okay. And what a fun season that was. One of my favorite Blues seasons in my lifetime,
Yeah,
even
it
with
was a
the
great
ending.
season, full of ups and downs. Right, never knew what was coming next. Yeah, obviously super upsetting the way it ended, and like you said, I too hung my head in my hands and was pretty upset for a while. We're gonna break down Game Seven. I don't think there's a ton of I don't think there's much point in really getting into like a lot of detail about Game Seven and really dissecting it the way we have other games, just because the season is over now. But we will talk about what went wrong because I think there are some interesting points there, and then reflect on the first round as a whole as well as the entire season. So that's what's on tap for today. But before we get into all of that, I just wanted to go ahead and like take a minute to thank all of our awesome viewers and listeners who have been following along with us throughout the past year. Alec, do you remember when our first episode was? Because
It
I don't
was
think I do.
like May 15th or 25th or sometime mid-May.
Yeah, so we're coming up on a full year here, but you know, it's been a very memorable year for Alec and and I think I speak for us both when I say we really appreciate everyone's support and engagement with us over this past year, and keep it coming. We really love it, and just thank you. Like that's the big thing. Just thank you to everyone for all of it. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
anything
it,
you want
it
to add.
was no, just it was so much fun. Can't wait to do it again. I
Yeah,
will take the most heartbreaking, mind-shattering Blues season every time if we get to cover it this way. So yeah, thanks
yeah,
everyone for your support, and let's keep it going.
yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Game Seven. I think it's important to keep in mind, like it's we have every right to be upset about this game for sure. And we have every like it makes sense to be upset about how the Blues exited the playoffs, about the way it all went down. Um, but I think it's also like while we deserve to be upset about the outcome of this game and this particular series, I guess, but like more so this game, I think we have a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this team and
Oh
like
yeah,
thinking big picture. And so we'll talk about some of that for sure. Um, but just getting into Game Seven because this is obviously where we should start. We haven't talked since Game Seven. Shout out to Alec for doing another solo episode. Appreciate it while I was out of commission, but I'm
it
back.
was
I got
fun.
called up, returned from the injured reserve, so we're back. We're back at it. Alec, why do you think the Blues lost this game? Like, let's just start here. Why do you think? Why did the Blues lose Game Seven?
It's a lot of things you can point to. Definitely the 5-on-6 play is the first thing that sticks out, and I think for good reason. Um, I think the way in which they just refused to do anything other than ice the puck was indicative and not in the right way, because that was a coaching strategy. And Montgomery admitted after the game, like that was a mistake. You know, we could have had a little bit more poise in the moment to realize, you know, you can take a little bit more ice and maybe get a shot on net and ice the game. So like I said, it seems they've really learned from that, but it seems like the 5-on-6 play was the issue.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, like those two goals to equal every single goal that was let in that game by like Bennington, like every single Jets goal that they scored was just like literally a picture perfect, right in the where it has to be. Um,
Yeah, it was like deflections, right? It was a lot of lucky bounces.
it was deflections, and they were all right in like the sweet spot of exactly where Bennington wasn't. And like I don't know, I would say they were lucky bounces. I think just more so
Some
like
of yeah,
it felt almost like hockey divine intervention. Maybe not that, but like it just you couldn't have placed it better than the Jets did with their deflections.
mm-hmm.
And stuff like that is so inconsistent and kind of hard to defend. So
Yeah,
it's not like I necessarily think that, you know, they necessarily It really it felt like a bounce of the puck, and the Jets got
Mhm.
the bounce of the puck, and they got it again. You would say put more pressure on the puck carrier, or maybe not leave so much open ice. I'll leave that to the smarter hockey minds than me to say, but I really Game 7 to me was an all-time hockey classic. I mean, one of the most high energy, high intensity games, maybe the most outside of like Game 7 of the Cup final that I've watched my team play in ever.
Mm.
Uh, and so I guess the other game, the double OT Game 7, that's notable also. But yeah, just I to me, I just tip my cap to the Jets because I think they got the bounces, they executed, and that those combination of things can be hard to beat. So
Yeah.
I think the Blues overall played a pretty great game,
Hmm.
and just the Jets, yeah, had a little bit of a better time, I guess.
Yeah, like for a large part of this discussion is just like, hey, like that's hockey. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, like you were saying. Um, but I think the reason why they lost this game, maybe not the series as a whole, but like this game, because I think they did a decent job of not falling into these traps for most of the series. But with Game 7 in particular, it was sort of the same. It was a continuation of the same weaknesses or same struggles that we saw a lot throughout the regular season, namely 5-on-6, as you brought up. And that's sort of been the talking point about that game, just giving up two goals with what, less than 2 minutes to go at 5-on-6 when the Jets had their goalie pulled. And it's kind of like, yeah, like you said, just sort of a game plan thing. The Blues, I think everyone has sort of heard this stat or seen it by now, but the Blues were like one of the worst teams at in 5-on-6 situations when they're down a man, right? When they're the five in a 5-on-6 situation, I think they're the only team in the league with a negative goal differential. So
Yep,
just
that's
the
the
fact
stat.
that this continued for Game 7, like that's the bigger takeaway for me. It's not like this was a fluky thing or something we hadn't seen before from this team. The big takeaway is like this has been an issue all year for this Blues team, and so moving forward, this is obviously something they're going to have to address. Um, and the reason I bring it up, I mentioned we're not really going to like dissect this game as much as we did the others because there's not any more playoff games being played um, to sort of discuss. But the fact that this was like a season trend, that's something that needs to be fixed.
Hmm.
And in the
And they're aware of it. Like I think
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that
I was
they.
gonna say in the end of season press conference, Jim Montgomery brought it up like a few times and like sort of took ownership on that, and I think explicitly said like this is something I will work on this offseason is look at teams that are good in those situations and see what they do in those situations to see how we can make it out unscathed. Um, and you can sort of point fingers and blame people, right? Like Buchnevich, I think is the big one. Why didn't he skate it up a little bit and try to get it in the net or whatever? Uh, but I don't think that's the move here. This was a team approach. It was obviously a game plan thing. Like this was what they planned to do. Buchnevich was just trying to execute that plan. I think it was probably more on the coaching staff than it was on the players, and so um, that was frustrating for sure. And then the other thing is just the penalty kill not coming through as much as we had seen it do in this series. That was one of the most encouraging things about this series, at least in the first 5 games, was that the Jets power play, which is the best in the league during the regular season this year, was pretty quiet. The Blues penalty kill, which was not very good in the regular season, did a good job of shutting down that power play unit uh, on the Jets side. Game 6 and 7 weren't really as good, and so they gave up their first goal to Cole Perfetti power play goal. I think that was really quick on the power play too, so it didn't take them
Hmm.
long
Yep.
to get that one in, and so um, that was a deflection. I think a tip by Cole Perfetti, and it was like a well executed tip for sure. But I think what I mean is it's tough to do much about that when you're Jordan Bennington at least, but. Um, I think the big takeaway is just that it was a continuation of a couple weaknesses and a couple struggles the PK and 5-on-6, just not getting it done in those situations. And so um, that's sort of the big takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, I mean, my only last point on the game 7 before I want to not talk about it anymore, is I I have to give all the credit in the world for the one who put out the best effort on the ice, Jordan Bennington. So
oh yeah,
just an unbelievable. I know he got the loss. Technically, did allow 4 goals, but again, I on those I just tip my cap to the Jets. I think that's like a perfect deflection. They were pretty much all like above his shoulder. Like he would have to move his head, know where the deflection is going. That's just an insane ask, and faced
yeah,
47 shots and let in 4 goals. And even then, they were like really. You had to be perfect to get the goal
hmm
in,
yeah,
and that's what I mean. That's a 936 save percentage in a 4 goal allowed game. Big game Bennington showed up, is here, and just there, like there isn't much more entertaining than watching that man when he's locked in. My goodness, that was a heroic effort that I don't know is getting enough credit because, I mean, Connor Hellebuck got third star of the game with an 897 save percentage. Bennington blows him out of the water as the loser. So
yeah.
kind of left out to dry by his team. But it was a great game. It was just a great game. I'm not really taking much negative from Game 7. It was a fantastic hockey game, and I think the best player on the ice was Jordan Binnington. And I think any questions about Binnington and his future are pretty much alleviated now. So, just
Yeah,
awesome.
big game winner for sure. Yeah, agree with everything there. So the next question I've got is, why did the Blues lose this series? And so I've got a couple things I want to bring up, and we can discuss a little bit before we take a bigger picture look and sort of zoom out here. But we've heard a lot about like puck luck and puck bounces, and that's it seems like the home team throughout the series got those bounces, got that puck luck, and that's interesting for sure. But I think that might be part of it. But what the Blues did wrong and like why they lost this series is that they didn't put themselves into the position often enough to get some of that puck luck go their way, especially on the road. Um, when I say puck luck, I think of things like puck deflections, just getting good tips, good deflections, like the Jets got here in Game 7, like both teams got when they were at home. And so, really, a lot of what puck luck is when it comes to scoring is just establishing a net front presence and getting those tip ins. And so I think the Blues didn't do a good enough job of that. Um, but the bigger takeaway in terms of why they lost this series is that they couldn't keep their foot on the gas when it mattered most. When they had control of a game and then ended up losing that game, it was because they just couldn't keep their foot on the gas. It happened in Game 1 and it happened in Game 7. It's sort of an interesting bookend here to this series. They just couldn't close it out because in the third period or the second period of some of these games, they just let the Jets crawl back into the game and then, coughed up a couple goals late. That happened. It's just kind of crazy that we saw that on both ends of the series. Game 1, Kyle Connor scores um, I guess what would be the game winner with less than 2 minutes to go. And then here in Game 7, less than 2 minutes to go, goalie pulled, they score 2 to tie it and then win in overtime. So it's just the Blues letting their foot off the gas and letting the Jets get back into it. Like, I don't think this was a bad series by any stretch. I think the Blues played really well. Obviously, they pushed them right to the brink, took them as far as they could take them, more or less. And so, really, I think the reason why they lost the series is they took their foot off the gas a little bit too much. Do you have any takes on that, or any other sort of reasons that they lost that you want to throw into the ring as well?
Just that it may be true that they took their foot off the gas, but I also don't necessarily hold that against this team, if that makes
Sure.
sense, because
Yeah.
you think about the stretch of hockey that they were playing, most nights being like one night rest for, like 12 or was it like 17 straight games maybe at one point, um, coming into the playoffs, and then not getting much rest in between playoff games either. They did get a little bit more during the first couple games, but I mean, it's the playoffs. Like, you're going 200% every night. And then for it to go to 7 games, and then for it to go to double overtime, that's just so much hockey. So, first of all, if if any of you are doing second round brackets and chose the Winnipeg Jets over the Dallas Stars, I would love to hear why. But
Yeah,
that's just so
it's
much
true.
for a team to go through, and especially the style of hockey that they play is so intense and high energy and high effort. And I like you said, they perhaps did let their foot off the gas a little bit, but at some point you're going to have to choose your moments. And I don't want to make excuses entirely, but I think when we just have to put this in a little bit of context of just they were playing way too much hockey, and they were really good at it, and so it sucks that they're not going to be able to play anymore this year. But um, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's what I got.
yeah, that's a great point. Sort of moving back into the regular season as you did there, I think this is sort of a good time to pivot to talking about this whole crazy roller coaster of a season here in 2024-25. I'm just thinking about some of the things that we were discussing on our episodes in September, preseason stuff. My bold prediction was 98 points, wildcard spot for this team, and I'm not trying to
Hawkeye
say
over
like
here.
I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I'm just saying like that was a bold prediction. So like going into this season, it was bold to expect and very optimistic to expect that they would end up in a wild card spot with in the upper 90s point range, and that's exactly what they did. And so I think that's just a testament to this team. And then thinking throughout the season, you mentioned these already a few minutes ago: the Broberg injury, the Thomas injury, uh, firing Drew Bannister and replacing him with Montgomery. Like there were some crazy moments in this season. Uh, it's been a roller coaster, like I said. I mean, what was the biggest? Can you point to one thing that's the biggest story or the biggest takeaway of the season for you, or is that just sort of like a collection of a lot of things?
No, there were just too many things, I think, this season. This season truly, like, if we take a step back and look at it, really was a magical, incredible season. Again, to lose 3 key players at key moments in the season and have your team come back better for that could be the storyline of a hockey team season in any normal year. And people don't even think about that. Like, that's not even a question part of this narrative, because you've got Cam Fowler and you've got Holloway and Broberg. And of course, you've got Jim Montgomery and the win streak and just making the playoffs and so many of these things. And just like turning into a different team post Fournette. Like, there's so many different. If I had to pick, it probably would be that coalescing of talent, and of like seeing what this team can and will be like going forward at post Four Nations. I would say that's probably the one that if I had to pick, I would land on, because I think that is some really big implications for the future. Not to say that the others don't, but to me, that's more of like team implications rather than individual player implications. But yeah, I mean, there is just so much to say about this season. Um, so much good, some bad, but I think just so much good. So I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I am too. Alec, if you'll allow me to sort of talk for a little bit, I've got a list that I've sort of mentally created of like it's 5 things, like 5 reasons why we as Blues fans should be optimistic about this team. Um, so I'd love to sort of get into these. The
You want to
order
talk
is
on my podcast?
the yeah. The order is 5 to 1. I'm gonna try to do it like I said. This is mostly in my head. I've got some notes, but um, number five, I'll go 5-1. Number five to me,
John off the dome.
off the dome. Number five is Jordan Bennington, and you sort of mentioned it already. Uh, he is the greatest goaltender in Blues history, and I think what he did this season is silenced the doubters and the haters once and for all. I mean, obviously he's still going to get some hate. That's just the nature of the internet and sports in general. Um, but I mean, he set a franchise record for wins. He won Team Canada that Four Nations trophy, and then came through in the postseason. Let me just read you some
Oh yeah.
stats. I mean, clutch gene Jordan Bennington. When the clock strikes playoffs, he becomes a whole new person, a whole new player. I mean, listen to some of these stats. And so this is Money Puck stats for goalies with at least 5 games played in the playoffs. Bennington ranked fourth in goals allowed average with 2.53, seventh in save percentage on unblocked shots with a 958, sixth in save percentage on high danger unblocked shots with 800. And all that came while having the third worst percentage of shot attempts blocked by teammates at 21.27. So he was not getting any help from his team, and still they went to 7 games. And so, in like this point of his career, where it's kind of like he hasn't been in the playoffs for a little while, does he still have it? Yes, he still has it. And so he answered that question over the past couple weeks, and that's number five for me.
I
Um,
mean, looks almost better.
yeah, for sure. And so, and it was interesting hearing some of Jim Montgomery's comments about Bennington, sort of talking about him as a regular season goalie, or not a regular, like a playoff goalie, but not someone who can play, uh, like carry the team throughout the regular season. Right? He's good when he's rested. I think was something Montgomery mentioned, and like that's okay. You know, there are other ways to get to the playoffs than having a Connor Hellebuck, and so we've talked about this a few times. I'd rather have Bennington than Hellebuck because we just got our, saw up close and personal the issue with a goalie like Hellebuck that can't get it done and or can't perform as well in the playoffs as he does in the regular season. But Bennington back in the playoffs looked the part yet again. So that was really awesome.
Yeah.
Number four, I'm gonna say this order can kind of bounce around, but I'm gonna say Jim Montgomery, which is an obvious reason to be optimistic if you're a Blues fan. Um, we signed him to a 5-year deal, right? Armstrong didn't waste any
Yeah, we did.
time to snatch him up, so he'll be here for a while. And after he took over, the Blues had a 35, 18, and 7 record in 60 games played. If you pace that out over an 82 game period, do you know how many what point pace that is? It's 105. It's a
Pretty good.
105 point pace. Pretty good. That would have been good enough for third in the Central Division, bumping Colorado down to a wild card spot. Imagine that. Not saying obviously that didn't happen because they didn't play that well for much of the season, but like, oh my goodness, like that's the type of winning percentage that we're talking about here with Montgomery at the helm. So getting a chance to see Montgomery coach for a full season, and I think it's not an exaggeration to say that he is one of, if not the best regular season head coach in the game right now. Seeing what he can do with a full season, uh, at the helm for this team, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see what he can do, and then see what he can do throughout the rest of his tenure um, as head coach over the next several years.
Yeah.
Um, Number three, I'm gonna say this hockey culture, hockey identity, the revival of the team's culture. This is something we talked about a few times throughout the season. The power of friendship, right? I think like Braden Shen and sort of the veteran core did a really good job of leading the way on that front. Gritty, hardworking team. They sort of solidified themselves as that. Um, we've used this phrase a lot, but just competing for the note on the front, not the name on the back. But really, what I think this does is it helps the team pick themselves up when they get knocked down, and it helps them ride the wave when they're having success. But also, it sets the tone, right, for all these young players coming up. It helps set the tone for them, and sort of this is what Blues hockey is, and this is how we play as a team. Super valuable. and we've talked about it a lot, so we don't really need to dive in great in great detail. But yeah, just love seeing that this year. And it persisted throughout the playoffs, which was great to see. Number two is the youth movement. And number two and one are kind of go hand in hand. And all of these kind of go hand in hand, really. But number two, just seeing these young players come up. Obviously, Holloway and Broberg were like the highlight here. That they are part of the core now. Breakout years for both of them. But beyond that, there's some other guys to be excited about too. Zach Bolduc is 21 years old, and he scored 19 goals this year. And that was with him being underutilized at the beginning. So super excited to see another year of Bolduc. Jake Neighbors, he had a breakout season last year. He followed that up with a career high 46 points this year. Jimmy Snuggerud, he's a Blue now, and he looked outstanding in his first taste at the NHL in the playoffs. Looked really great. Not a lot on like the stat sheet, the points to show for it, but looked really good. Looked like he belonged. Tyler Tucker established himself as a like legit third pair defenseman, and Dvorsky got his first taste of the NHL. Love seeing that. So the youth movement, man, it's coming, and they're a big part of this team now. It's really happening, and so that was super exciting. And then number one, I'm just gonna call this one like the window is open, and we're here. In the press conference yesterday, Doug Armstrong, I think we should just refer to it with this term from now on, the re-whatever. He said the re-whatever is ending. This is his quote. The re-whatever is ending. I think we're now becoming who we want to be. Remember like earlier in the year, I think before the season started, he was like saying, I think this team could have what it takes, but they need to show me. They need to show me they're ready if they want, if we're going to build a little bit more. That's what they did. It seems like he's bought in. And so, 12-game win streak, that's huge. I think they're ready to take a step. Making the playoffs now, like this is the big thing. Making the playoffs is now kind of the expectation, especially if they start to add some pieces around what we've already got. And this is sort of this is really what I've been thinking of most over the past few days here. If the opening of the window is the Blues taking the winners of the President's Trophy to double overtime in Game 7, then this next era of Blues hockey will be special, and it will be exciting. Like, if that's the beginning of the window, the sky is the limit for this team. And so that's just sort of what I'm most excited for. So those are my reasons for optimism. We can talk about some of those, or do you have any others that you want to bring into the conversation here?
I think there are other reasons for optimism, maybe that you didn't touch on, that are more general, like the NHL, just in general, with the cap going up. Now, I do think that is a little bit overblown. I think that kind of gets thrown around pretty loosely as, oh, the cap goes up, therefore my team is going to be better. Well, really what that means is it's going to be that much more competitive to get the player you want, because every team can now pay the player the same amount. So you still have to have, be a good team culture, etc. And maybe a rebuilding team can just pony up more than you. Also, I think if, with everyone's cap going up the same amount, it's not exactly like an advantage to your team. It's just more flexibility in roster building. But that being said, like, I think it's overblown, but it does hold that there is going to be flexibility in roster building, which they kind of didn't need. So it's almost like a what's the term? Wealth of riches, luxury. I can't remember.
Riches.
Yes, thank you. Embarrassment of riches. That they have now with the flexibility that they're going to have coming into this offseason. They can really do whatever they want with that basically $11 million in cap space. Still got to lock some guys up. Broberg and Holloway are probably due for their paydays, but of course those won't hit until the season after next. So there is really a chance to have a special signature Doug Armstrong offseason in his last offseason. Is this the last Doug Armstrong offseason?
It might. I think it is.
Oh my gosh. That almost has me more sentimental than the Game 7 loss.
he might continue to be involved next offseason and then like take a step back at the season's start as sort of like maybe a
Okay.
way I could see that going, but it's almost over. Like his tenure is almost over.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, so in a draft where or in a year where the hockey draft is maybe not the most exciting for especially where the Blues are picking and just in the later rounds and their lack of picks, and just generally is pretty people tend to agree that this draft is a little bit weaker than your average draft. And in a year where the free agent market is going to be pretty open, there's some real like this offseason could get crazy for every team, and the Blues, as much as any team, are going to put their hat in the ring and make some serious shakeups here. They have a chance to really manipulate this market to their advantage. And obviously, we've seen what they can do when they don't have a lot of space, which is acquire Cam Fowler, Suter, Foxa, and see the results. But yeah, I think everything you said is really great, and I agree. And I guess I'm maybe perhaps looking a little bit too much forward, but in terms of how that changes, like my view of the season in retrospect here, is just that I think that this team had everything to prove and sort of knew that going into the offseason there was going to be a lot of shift. I mean, we even thought at the trade deadline, like all the rumors about Braden Shen getting traded and such, this was like playing for their jobs for this core to stick together for a lot of the year. And I don't want that to be entirely lost. And they did. And not only did they like shouted back at Doug Armstrong saying, if you break this up, you were going to lose your job. So yeah, I am absolutely just so. I guess this is mostly on the culture, but also just the way in which this roster has such good cohesion together. The way they coalesced into this working group is something that you don't often see ever in like this type of buy-in and this type of just cohesion. I feel like is the operative word here,
Sure.
and it's one of the reasons that this season was so special to me because we got to watch something special that you don't always get, and it's not like that's going away anytime soon, which is
Yeah, for sure.
all the more exciting.
Yeah, and I think just so everyone knows, like I think we'll start talking off-season stuff here pretty soon. Today is definitely more like reflective, I guess, on this season that we just watched, but that's coming for sure. Um, I want to ask you though, like, is this now? I'll preface this by saying, like, yes, 2019 we won a Stanley Cup, and so maybe that's the year. But is this Doug Armstrong's best season ever, like as GM? And it's, I mean, I don't know. It's like just what he was able to do with this roster and this team and this club as a whole this year was crazy. Like he is one of, if not the best GM in the league for sure. And what he was able to do with this crafty offer sheets move, just adding exactly what this team needed to like just make it into the playoffs and improve just enough to do that. It was just like an incredible season. Sort of accelerated the timeline of the whatever by adding Broberg and Holloway, and so that's the big story, right? But then just being bold and being like creative with how he worked on this team and improved this team. Offer sheets is the big one. Not missing out on Jim Montgomery when he became available. I like 1000% believe that if Boston exited the first round of the playoffs last season, we would have seen the Blues go after Jim Montgomery and try to sort of poach him away from the Bruins. I 1000% believe that that's what would have happened. So like Jim Montgomery was the guy that Doug Armstrong wanted, and as soon as he became available, he got him. And look at the pace they played at once Army did make that hire. And then the Cam Fowler trade, like that is the big trade of the year we were sort of, I don't know if like frustrated is the right word, maybe just a little bit surprised or confused that they sort of stood pat at the trade deadline. But like, we got to remember the Cam Fowler trade was the big trade. They just made it
Hmm.
early enough to let it have a bigger impact. And I think we got to give Army credit for that. We got to give the scouting staff as a whole credit for that, because Cam Fowler like wasn't this world beater in Anaheim this year before he came over. Like I remember our trade reaction episode, we were like, it'll be fine. Like this guy is decent. He's not having the best year, but you know, he'll be a regular player. But what he became in St. Louis, I mean, credit to Army and the coaching staff and sort of the whole front office for identifying that as the player that this team needed. It saved the season, and I think that's what got them to the playoffs. It stabilized the defensive pairings. Um, Not to mention Cam Fowler becoming the greatest defenseman in like of the first round, 10 points. The only players that had more points than Cam Fowler in the first round were both in Edmonton. I'll say that. So like it's just an unreal first round from Cam Fowler, but a great season as well. So like what I really liked is they identified that as a player who could fit into this system and the style of hockey that they play. Like Jim Montgomery likes to play a style of hockey where he lets the defensemen carry the puck a little bit. He lets them roam, and then when they do, they're a forward will drop back to play defense if there's a breakaway going the other way. Like this will be the second episode where I mentioned Ted Lasso in a short period of time, but I'm watching Ted Lasso right now. Do you remember Total Football? Like, you remember that sort of runner?
Hmm.
Total Football is like a Dutch soccer concept where it's like positions don't really exist, and you have these players sort of moving the ball and moving all around the field, and sort of, if for example a defenseman wants to dribble up and play offense, you let him and fill in where he left. And so, not that that's like what the Blues were doing, but it sort of reminds me of that. We saw Colton Parayko do a lot of ozone entries on his own. We saw Cam Fowler do that as well. Like I think he just fit into the system that they were playing really well. And so I think the larger point I'm trying to make here is just a fantastic season from the front office and from Doug Armstrong. Like, is this one of his best seasons ever, if not the best?
Yeah, one of his best for sure. The best is really salacious. I think that's a debate you could have for time unending. Because also, like, I think he's had some just out of the park drafts um, that have like absolutely cemented his legacy and built the team. Excuse me. I would say like 2017 is one that stands out uh or 2016 picking Tage Thompson and Jordan Kyrou, and then 2017 picking Robert Thomas. In I wrote a piece on Bleeding Blue about this way back last
Mm-hmm.
summer, but I'm just going through it now. In 2010, he had 2 first-round picks, got Jaden Schwartz and Vladimir Tarasenko, who are 2 of the highest point-scoring Blues ever. So there are some like really just stupid good drafts. I mean, this is just crazy. In 2011, the St. Louis Blues did not have a first-round pick, so Armstrong had to find value on the margins. His solution: 2 key components of the 2019 Stanley Cup winning team, Joel Edmondson in the second round and Jordan Binnington in the third round, without a first-round pick. I mean, so there's
It's
some,
Army.
like, if you consider draft as part of that, I would say this year's draft was good in terms of depth. I think there's some really intriguing prospects, like a Mercick, like our 7th round pick. I forget his name, and not Kaskamaki, Pekarchik, but Juracek I think is looking maybe like a miss, and kind of we thought maybe it was at the time. So yeah, and then obviously 2019 acquiring Ryan O'Reilly, who ended up being your Conn Smythe winner. Any trade that involves a Conn Smythe winner for one of the 2 teams, to me, is just like how do you have a conversation about that? Because he won this player by winning the Conn Smythe. That means this player won you the Stanley Cup. How can you say that? So yeah, one of the best for sure. Probably top three. I think some of those early 2010s years were really, really good too.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, Shattenkirk
Maybe
trade, drafting
maybe the most
Petrangelo.
creative,
So
we could
many.
say, like just the way
Mm-hmm.
he improved the team, like offer sheets, coach, camp out. Like there was just a lot of ways that it came this year in particular.
Yeah.
But yeah, you pointed to some great ones there. Obviously, like like you said, the Tage Thompson draft became Ryan O'Reilly, and so like that's a you follow the sort of follow the breadcrumbs on that one. That's definitely a good one as well. Yeah, great
And
season from Doug.
and Tage Thompson is one of the best young wingers
Well, yeah,
players in the game. So it's not like it was a
not
draft miss either.
yeah, not for us, but yeah, um,
Again, Conn Smythe, Stanley Cup.
yeah, no, yeah.
You can't lose a trade where you acquire that. So,
hmm hmm
um, but yeah, I think just Doug Armstrong. I just man, it's really like it's hitting me now. Like I don't know that I'm ready for this to be my last Doug Armstrong off season. Like what am I gonna do without my summer master classes?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like I think when they made the announcement that there would be this transition over to Steen taking over, we were like, all right, like nice, this will be great. Like Doug Armstrong, great GM, but he's probably like doesn't really have it the same way as he used to. No, he's still got it for sure. Like we just we just saw it all year. Uh, like the reasons why Doug, like our Army is one of the best GMs in the league, if not the best. Yeah, like you said, it's if he has another off season like that this year, it's gonna be a tough farewell. And he's still gonna stay around the team, but like yeah, it's gonna be a new look. And I mean, benefit of the doubt for Alexander Steen for sure. Like hopefully he can learn a lot of lessons, and I'm sure he has from Doug Armstrong already. Um, but yeah, it'll be tough to say goodbye to the greatest GM in franchise history for sure. Um, Thinking about the season as a whole now, though, I already know the answer to this question. I think we're on the same page that the answer is yes. But maybe we can instead ask to what degree. The question was gonna be, can we say this season was a success given the heartbreaking way that it ended? I think we can both still say yes, right? We're on the same page about that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So then the question I think is like, how big of a success is was this season, given the way it ended? They were inches away, from the second round of the playoffs, like from winning a playoff series. And so, how big a success was this season really, uh, given the way it ended? Do you think?
I would say this big. um, I mean, the biggest thing we kept saying throughout the series is that the Blues are playing with house money, and you can't lose with house money and then be upset because it's not your money; it's the house's. Like that's what that saying means.
hmm
So it hurts because it's a sucky way to lose a hockey game and to be eliminated from the playoffs, but it also just sucks to be eliminated from the playoffs. Like if I had to like, I don't know, give this season a grade or like a number or letter, I don't know, whatever the kids are using nowadays, I'd put it in S tier.
S
Because
tier.
I think it was the way that this team. I guess I'm also baking in a little bit of projection going forward because that's just how I think about sports ranking stuff. But again, the way that this team coalesced and came together means that there is going to be success going forward. And if you just have a good season where a bunch of guys have fluky good years and you get a chance, get some rentals, have a shot, and then get bounced because that's sports, that like leads you with some serious questions. The only question for the Blues right now is how high can they go? And for that to be what I'm saying after watching this season of hockey, to me, that is the definition of the best possible outcome. I can't imagine outside of the Stanley Cup, which I guess gets its own Stanley Cup tier. But like to me, this is like, I don't know, out of 10, like a 9 out of 10, maybe a grade like A minus
Yeah.
or something. Like this is like a all time Blues season for me because I am looking forward, but even just how the heights that this team reached is not something that I've seen in a lot of years of watching Blues hockey. And you can have a lot of good years, but this one just felt special. So yeah, the
Yeah.
season to me absolutely a success, and I think is one of the better. I mean, one of the comments in the press conference today was Army said it's a good season, not a great season, and I audibly gasped when he said that. Which it seems like maybe you agree with him
Yeah.
too. So if you want to get into that, but I just I'm so high on what I'm still riding the high of the rest of the Blues season, even though it ended so painfully.
Yeah, I think the what was behind Armstrong's comments there is just that like his expectations and like his standards are set a lot higher. Um, I think this team probably performed better than he thought it would like going into the season. Um, but I think he's speaking like generally. Like you can't say it's a great season unless you go deep. Like I think he would say that Colorado didn't have a great season. They had a good season. Like that. That's sort of what I think was behind Army saying good, not great. It's just like great in general, like or good in like generally speaking in the NHL. Like a great season would be more than this, no matter who you are. And so that's sort of what I thought. I would agree. Like this season was a huge success. I would probably still like. I probably would put it up there, 9 out of 10, A minus, whatever you want to say. What is tough for me is, as we said when we were breaking down Game 7 a little bit, like the reason they lost the game in the series was because they couldn't fix some of their biggest issues. And like, if it's roster construction, there's only so much you can do. But this was like a game plan approach thing that wasn't working, and like that's sort of what I would dock them for, is just not being able to figure that out and adjust when it mattered most. Still a huge success. That's like the only thing I'm really docking them for. Like this season was such a success given our preseason expectations, even our midseason expectations. Um, with what it did to their timeline on the, again, I'll use this really fun term now, the re whatever, and then just given like the way this window is opening up, and then the way that the organization as a whole navigated the re whatever, there's going to be a lot of eyes on the Blues moving forward because they're trying something a little bit new. They're getting creative with how they're getting back into contention. Um, the model that so many teams follow is you blow it up and you rebuild. And no one likes a rebuild. Like that's never fun. It's not a guarantee that it'll work out. Ottawa and Montreal are sort of coming back from a rebuild, but like there was a long dark period there. Detroit is entering like year what 9 or something of the Iser plan. Like they're still struggling. They're sort of stuck in neutral right now. You look at Buffalo for crying out loud. Like they are in
Good Lord.
purgatory right now. They just cannot get out of it.
They're
Um,
like whatever the step to the side of purgatory is. Like they're in a different
yeah,
dimension of
yeah.
just lost.
I feel bad for Buffalo fans for sure. And then like even Chicago, you're not guaranteed that that's going to work out. They've got a lot of promising young talent for sure, but like I don't think that Connor Bedard and the team as a whole took as big a step as they were hoping this year. So it's like rebuilds can work. Like it's proven that those can work, but it's not proven that they always will work. And so I think the Blues as an organization had this mindset with their timeline and their competitive window that we're not doing that. Like we're not blowing it up, ripping it apart to the studs. What we're gonna do is identify a core early on and then add on to that core in creative ways. And so that core, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Colton Parayko, Jordan Bennington, of course, and then like Braden Shen a little bit as well. And those guys, and there's a couple of others that sort of are in the timeline as well, but I wouldn't say that they're in the core necessarily. Um, like those guys were around for the last high period for this team, right? Like 2022. Those guys were around for that, but now they're going to be around for this new window. It was just like sort of instead of like a from the mountaintop all the way down and back up. It was like let's just like use our momentum a little bit, our downward momentum a little bit to just more quickly go back up and climb the hill a little bit. And so they're getting creative with it. The offer sheets is the prime example of that. That accelerated the timeline probably years, I would say. Like you don't have to wait and
Yeah.
draft guys like Holloway and Broberg and then develop them. Like you got them, and they both took a step that worked out better than we could have dreamed. And so I think there were a lot of eyes on this Blues team. This is sort of a new. I'm not. I'm not. I don't know if they're like pioneering a new competitive model or anything, but I mean, they're getting really creative with the way that they're finding their way back into contention. I think you could sort of point to the Washington Capitals as doing a similar thing, and it worked out a lot better for them this year. But it helps when Alexander Ovechkin continues to be Alexander Ovechkin for sure.
I mean,
Like,
and also the Capitals were a playoff team last year, and they're just a better playoff team versus the
yeah,
Blues were out of the dance. And the year
yeah,
before that, the Capitals have been in the playoffs for years now. The year before that, the Blues were a bottom 7 team, I think, and in 1 year's time made it to the fringe, and now are so different
yeah,
types of
for sure, for sure. But I think this is sort of like a different model than like a different competitive timeline, competitive model than what we've seen. So I think there were a lot of eyes on the Blues, especially after the way their season ended. Like I think it's a success because you now are like getting evidence that this is working. Like this is defying expectations and defying odds in a lot of ways. But it's working. Like they made the playoffs, and I mean they clinched on the final day, but it's not like they limped in. I think they kind of stormed to it once they found their groove. It's like let's go get this done. And they made the playoffs, and they gave the President's Trophy winners, the best team in the regular season, everything they could handle, like everything. Push them to the brink, like literally the brink. It doesn't get much closer than that. 1.6 seconds. So like that alone is evidence that this is working. And so I'm really excited to see Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen double down and continue to find creative ways to pull us out of the re whatever. I love this term. I'm just gonna be using it from now on. I'm not calling it a retool from now on. It's a re whatever. So just I think it's a success for that reason, that you're starting to see the fruits of the labor, right? They're starting to reap what they sowed, I guess.
Yeah. And I think to echo off of your point there, I really am impressed by the way that the Blues, again, as maybe I'm just a jaded fan, but the way that the Blues inserted themselves into the national market this season and like got coverage, because boy, let me tell you, there were some good Blues teams that ended up, 100 something points for years and years and years in a row. And we're just like, yeah, it's the Blues. They'll be there and maybe they'll make a run. And there was never a focus on this city like we got this season. And on that point, to me, I can't call this season a failure when that narrative is only building now that the Blues have been eliminated from the playoffs. I've seen still news sources, hockey podcasts, social media, etc., say, yeah, the Blues got eliminated, but look what they almost did to the Jets. It almost doesn't matter. Like, it's almost like they proved their mettle, but they're a young team, and now they have that experience, and they're going to get better this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, just the randomness of sports. If Binnington and Hofer can go back to what they were in 2024, or so many what ifs about this team, like they are the team has absolutely, after this season, inserted itself into the national picture in a way that they haven't in years in my lifetime. And so I think if you want a grade on this season to know if it's a success or not, don't ask Blues fans. And everyone else will tell you that the Blues are a hockey playing force to be reckoned with, and are going to be. They had a great season, and are going to be a legit threat in the Western Conference coming up after this exciting offseason.
Yeah. Super excited to see what they do this offseason. We got some really interesting comments from Doug Armstrong in the end of season press conference that we're really going to dive into probably on our next episode. And we're really going to start to get into some offseason content moving forward. Alec, is there anything else that you want to break down as far as, I mean, we'll have more opportunity to get like into the nitty gritty of specific player performances over the season and reflect on the season a little bit more in future episodes. But anything big picture, anything else you wanna add on at the end here?
No, I think we covered everything. Just it truly was such a fun, amazing season.
Yeah,
Yeah, it hurts, but again, I'm so thankful for the time that I had watching the Blues this year. And I got one last question to end things off.
yeah.
What was your favorite moment from the year? Let's stick
Mm.
on ice. So no Montgomery hire,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
Does it
a
have to
goal, a
be?
hit,
Okay, I'll say.
a
Does it
game.
have to be one moment, or can it be like a trend
It has to
throughout
be
the
a one
season?
game.
One game. I'm gonna say the Broberg OT winner.
That's
Um,
mine.
yeah, let's go.
All
Let's
right.
go. If you would let me say like a trend, I would have said just watching Broberg skate and become a piece of the core. Like that was probably the highlight of my season is Broberg becoming my favorite player in the entire league. Um, but if I have to pick a moment, I'll pick his iconic moment, the OT
Vancouver
winner.
OT winner. Yeah. That's mine for sure. I go back to that clip all the time.
Chills.
Um, so fun. I think too.
That one's so
Uh,
funny. He just is like on the ice, like and I think it's Holloway and Shen right there. It's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, yeah, and he gets up and he's like, let's go, and it's just so funny. It's so
yeah.
funny.
Um, I think if I were to give a different answer, I would probably also say it. I really like all the touchdowns that we scored, all the 7 goal games,
Yeah,
of which I was in attendance for one against
yeah.
the Ducks. That was fun. The Winter Classic, another
Oh
like
yeah,
shout out moment to be there.
yeah. That's
No, I
crazy.
have to say Winter Classic. I was
You got. I was
there.
gonna say you
I
got to
have
say
to.
that.
I have to.
Yeah,
I was gonna
historic.
shout out to the Kairu Detroit goal with in Snuggerud's first game in the
Mm-hmm.
Retro Reds. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I got to say the Winter Classic for me is the other one. But yeah, that Broberg OT winner was the loudest I yelled in a long time. And oh boy, I was just back. Amount of times I repeated that clip. So
Pure elation
fun,
after that one. Yeah, that was
so much
a
fun.
signature moment. A lot of signature moments this year that we'll never forget for sure. But we're gonna pivot to talk some off-season stuff here on our upcoming episodes. So if you wanna hear about our reactions and our thoughts on some of Doug Armstrong's comments, he had some interesting comments there. I'll just sort of uh, I guess leave it on a cliffhanger, but just interesting comments about Faxa returning or not returning. Some interesting comments about what they're looking to target in the offseason and what they think about this team moving forward. So we're gonna come back probably this weekend, probably Sunday is when we typically do, but sometime around then we'll be back soon to start talking off season. So if you want to join that conversation and not miss an episode and hear about our takes on the off season and things like that, then be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the best way to help us out. So hit that button if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. Like this video as well. That helps get our videos out there in the world and get people to see those. And if you're listening on audio, please follow, rate, and review. Not only do we read those and love to read those reviews and those ratings, but it helps sort of promote the show as well. So if you wouldn't mind dropping us some, a 5-star rating and a review, we love that. And then follow us on socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. You can follow along with us. We like to see everyone's comments and engage with you all over there. We post memes, graphics, reels, and announce when we're going live. So if you never want to miss some Note News content, we got a lot going on. So be sure to follow us and engage with us on all those platforms. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Note News. It's been one heck of a season, and I'll say again, thank you to everyone for an amazing year, an amazing season. We truly couldn't have kept this going and had as much fun as we did this year without all of you coming on and engaging with us live and leaving us comments and things all year long. So we really appreciate it. Alec and I both shout out love to everyone. Thanks so much. So we really appreciate it. But we're not stopping. We'll be back here. We're gonna keep our 2-episode a week schedule rolling all off season. So be sure to return and continue to enjoy some Note News and some Blues talk. And we'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. And let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.